Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Revenue Optimists. Today, I'm very fortunate to be joined by Joe Caliendo, who's the Director of RevOps over at Markforged. Joe, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, so I'm the Director of RevOps here at Markforged. I've been in RevOps functions for pretty much the last 30 years or so, whether it was sales ops or biz ops or you name it, whatever we called it at the time. It's sort of where I've made my mark. So I'm pretty excited about that.
So I know Markforged has grown incredibly well and done several, if not a lot of acquisitions. With that massive growth in the acquisitions, how does that all come together from a RevOps standpoint? How are you able to kind of operationalize that others
Yeah, Markforged was recently acquired by Nano Dimensions, which is another 3D printing company. It's been a really interesting journey getting to know all of the different brands that are under that umbrella, sort of understanding how their business goes together. So whether it's here at Nano Markforged or whether it's in a number of the other acquisitions I've done, that whole process there's a lot to it. There's a lot of obviously the data consolidation, the mapping, those sort of things, but there's also pretty much what I think is the larger piece of it, and that's helping the people transition in that M&A space, and that's probably the most difficult.
Oh, I believe it. There's so much to consider, right? There's the business, the systems, the data, the people, of course.
Yeah.
When you're tackling it from a RevOps standpoint, how do you kind of look at those two businesses and the two go-to-market systems, the CRMs, and then try to marry those together or merge them?
Yeah, it starts with understanding, and this is one of the things that I try to preach a little bit. Not every business is a special flower. Not every business is completely different than any other business out there. And we tend to think that our home that we have built where we are is the most special and different thing than anyone else has done. When you're doing these type of integrations for acquisitions like this, it's really important to know that at the highest level, business is still business. You're still selling things. You're still doing leads and engaging with prospects. You're still going through a sales cycle. You're still transacting the business and you're still supporting the customer. And from that perspective, it's really very similar. So the effort in those system integrations, whether it's the front end or back end, it really comes down to understanding how do you translate from company A to company B? How do you build that language gap, that vocabulary to be able to realize that you're saying the same things, maybe with different words, until that point where you start to bring those lexicons together.
Kind of building a data dictionary, but also getting the folks on both sides talking the same language.
Because you spend most of your initial discovery meetings arguing about how could you do it that way with this thing, right? Whether it's deal registration or whatever it is. These two companies may use that exact same word in different ways. So now they can't realize what they're saying to one another. And that's that point where you get past that and actually start to do that mapping of what's being said that just changes everything in the process.
Fascinating. I wouldn't have even considered that. I was going straight to kind of the data itself within the two CRMs, but I can believe that because there must be a lot of emotions as well, having companies take over one another.
Yeah, for sure. And I often start every meeting, especially when we're doing an A-type meeting, I'll enter those meetings with the mantra words matter. It's incredibly important what we're saying here so we can get the work done. And that's when you can actually start to do better data mapping on the functional side. You can get those functional meetings done a lot better if you understand what you're saying.
Interesting. Okay, I like that. So once you've broken down those barriers and they're all on the same page of the verbiage that they use, how do you reconcile the data within the CRMs, or at least how do you approach that problem?
There's a bunch of different ways. I mean, it really depends largely on the entities, right? Are you talking about an entity that's been around for 20 years, or are you talking about an entity that's sort of just started about a year or so ago? They've got maybe 100, 200, couple hundred customers, right? It's a lot easier to do migrations like that, depending on how mature and robust the data model is for either company. Obviously, there's some great tools out there. We're using Traction Traction Clean as a way to sort of start to look at those data differences, or more importantly, finding those data connections. Because as you're bringing the company together, one thing that's incredibly important is continuity for your customers. And from that perspective, understanding where those customers are overlapping allows you to start have better conversations with them. So you don't feel disconnected to them, which it can very much happen during those M&A, the post-merger integration conversations. It can feel very disconnected for the customers in those
Oh
cases.
gosh, I believe it. Hopefully, it also presents some kind of 1+1=3 opportunities as well, that
Yes.
you're seeing some more potential across these overlapping customers.
From a RevOps perspective, it's 100% what it is. We're digging in. We love to data mine, right? That's what we do. We're data nerds. That's where we want to be. But to identify opportunities there, cross-sell opportunities and things like that is really actually super cool in that process as well.
That's amazing. Do you ever use kind of a single source of truth when you're merging these two organizations together?
That's a great question. I think if you had asked me that maybe 3 years ago, I would have given you a different answer than I would today. So if we kind of look at the scope, that was all you could do, right? You had to make a decision on, are we going to merge these, let's say our CRMs? Are we going to bring those together, or are we going to allow business continuity on one business while we do all the work? There's a lot more happening with CRMs today, and whether it's Salesforce or HubSpot, where you have the ability to create sort of this interim single source of truth that allows your continuity to run while you're bringing that data together into that new sort of refined space. So I think that really goes back, the answer to that question specifically goes back more to what we were talking about with the maturity of the different companies. If you've got a relatively young company with a relatively simple data model, you bring it in. You just sort of force it, make it happen, and you move forward. But if you've got something that is, you're talking 20-year-old companies, you got to take your time there, because there's a lot of tentacles that need to be untangled to make them.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine. Yeah, I'm sure trying to figure out what's necessary, what's legacy, what's beneficial, what each can learn from one another, because there's probably
Right.
good stuff on both sides. And then there's probably also stuff that you can throw out that's kind of legacy tech debt.
Yeah, there's that special flower construct comes in again, right? It's that point where, you've created nuance that exists for your company, but my least favorite expression of all of them is, because this is how we've always done it. That makes me mental. That's one of the things that I loathe. If we don't know why we're doing it, odds are we don't need to do it. So let's figure out what our next steps are.
Yeah, very good point. Absolutely. Okay, so for those folks who haven't gone through a merger before but are about to embark on it, what does a timeline look like for going through that? And what have you learned, or what can you share that might help going
I
forward?
would say, so I guess my recommendation would be prepare yourself. It's a journey. If we're talking about those two small companies, it's going to happen pretty quick, maybe 2-3 months. But in most cases I've seen, you're talking 6 months to a year if you want to get to the point where you are ERP, CRM, whatever your sales outreach processes are. Your whole go-to-market strategy often needs to be reviewed when you talk about these things. Comp plans, customer success and engagement. Is your strategy in one of those businesses a direct model, whereas another one might be using resellers or distributors? All of these things sort of extend the process as you figure out how to fit the bricks together. So I would say just prepare yourself for the journey. I work with a coworker here who says if you redefine fun, you can have more of it. And that's really what the M&A process is all about.